All right. Good morning, YouTube. How's everybody doing? Hope you're enjoying your Saturday. Just chilling, watching the sun come up and around the corner or wherever it might be coming up from in your perspective. I was saying a while back, I need to figure out a way to start these chats from the back deck. It'd be more enjoyable. At least when there's not rain overhead, like looks like slashing right through the middle of the country. Doesn't look like any fun. Browsing through here looking for some issues. Trying to catch up on everything. See who we might have around here. Haven't got the side chat up yet. It's nice and clear out here, probably in the low 50s. Nice and comfortable. All right, what we got going here? I'm still fiddling around with my computer. Give everybody time, chance to jump in. All right, let's see what we might have going on here. Yeah, so the weather out west, it's nice. All you folks in the east, watch out for rain. So that's a summary of that. Who we got out here? Hey, 01 Crom, good morning. 01 Crom, yeah, Trolls joining us this morning. I haven't seen you in a minute. How's things been going? You guys got some serious rain. It looked like, was it yesterday or Thursday? High Pocket 7, good morning. What's been shaking? Got a new crew in this morning. How's everybody been doing? Anything on the radar on your all's end of particular note? We'll try to keep it going on this end. Hasn't been much about the Hawaii volcano the last week or so, but they did have a wrap-up article. Like 85 homes have been burned on that volcano deal. Just keeps it going out there. Oh, you had lemon-sized hail in that storm there, Crom? Yeah, we've had hail a couple times the last couple of weeks. Storms roll through, and it's been on and off. So there's some links in your description box to check out if you would like. I don't think we're going to get to all the zero hedge stories, but we can always make a good effort, right? But the one I wanted to touch on in particular was my favorite subject. So went over to check it out. Zero Hedge has an article about the cognitive dissonance surrounding Donald Trump. So that caught my interest. It's from yesterday evening, so it's fairly new. So I just wanted to browse by and check it out because that sounds like it's right up my alley. Hey, good morning, Shooting with Uncle Dan. Mim Long's joined us. Good morning. So this is via alternativemarket.com and by Brandon Smith. So as a very good quote off the top, in general, it has always been dangerous to put blind faith in human icons of any kind, not to mention entirely unnecessary. Hero worship of a celebrity is unhealthy, but hero worship of a president can be truly dangerous. So there's a good one. I have to use that one a few times. That's could probably say that a few times and not get tired. Question is why? Because political power relies mostly on human capital, the number of people within a society that are willing to support or even fight for a particular change. Swaths of citizenry can be wielded by politicians with ill intent like a weapon to create the illusion of consensus and dramatic reversals in cultural principles. Yeah, who has principles? Yeah, that's a good one. This is getting good. These changes usually tend to involve more control for government and less freedom for the public and can last for generations. Probably should have lasted for generations. We've been on this train for a long time. The cult of celebrity has never been more prominent in politics than it has in the past decades. It didn't start with Barack Obama. I'll tell you that much. People have been worshiping the president for a long time. How do you think Roosevelt had 3 terms with no opposition hardly? Cult of personality. It says with Obama there was an element of naive adoration that leftists largely embraced. Obama was more than a president; he was an idol. There's no doubt about that. Nobody can argue that. It seems like each side has idolized most of their presidents over the last 60 years. If you look at the way they wrote and talked about them, and have since, with few exceptions. It says here, going on. Unfortunately, I am also seeing some of the same behavior and elements of the conservative population when it comes to Donald Trump. He could have wrote this in 2015, and you could say that. First, Trump is one of the few presidents that was already a celebrity before running for office. His notoriety went far beyond that of someone like Ronald Reagan, who did rank as a cultural element, but certainly not an icon or idol. He was for a certain generation, though. Reagan, for our grandparents' generation, he was more well known. So maybe it's just it's generational more so than widespread. Obama became an idol for a wide swath of people, just like Trump is doing. So I guess it's certain sections of the populace had them as idols beforehand. Second, Trump rode the wave of a backlash movement against the far left, which is now, by every definition, fully invested in cultural Marxism, if not economic Marxism. Yeah, there's no doubt. Trump represents the movement America was saved from imminent destruction by an insane ideology. Okay, let's see, this is going to be a careful statement here. He says, in fact, I would say Trump's popularity was directly proportional to the moderate public's disgust with social justice fanatics. Yes, that's a good way to say it. Directly proportional to how much people hated Hillary Clinton. This is third. The election of 2016 was not about Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. It was about traditional American values versus moral relativism. At least that was how many conservatives viewed it. If you think that Trump had traditional values, I guess. I don't know how anybody. Anyway, this is his article. I'm just reading through it. I don't know that many viewed it that way, the traditional America versus moral relativism, because Trump didn't really reckon. He spoke about the old America, I guess, but did he really represent it? I mean, how could he say Trump represented traditional American values when he didn't really have any ever? But maybe that's just me speaking. Going on in the article here. Some people may argue that Trump earned his election win by bravely on the establishment and taking on the establishment, and hard left when no other candidate would, which is not true. Um, but the notion is powerful and people take it personally. Trump cheerleaders react with disdain when any critical tone is applied to his behavior. I would say it's even worse than that. They outrightly defend any of his behavior. In their mind, only evil leftists are critical of Trump, and if you are on the political right, then you better be toeing the line. And we've all seen this, I think. People that absolutely defend him at all costs, and all the different stuff that comes out of Trump's past, which everybody knew should have been there. But so he goes on here. Says it's funny, when I was writing analysis on the disturbing nature of the Bush administration, I was called a leftist. Cognitive dissonance from the right. Right? Yeah. On the left. When I went after Barack Obama, I was called a far-right extremist and a potential racist. Now, when investigating Trump, odd activities, I'm back to being accused of the leftist again. Yeah, I would see how that would work. Moving on down to the last section. Is this the last section? Nope. Not. It's a pretty long article. I might have to cut this short. Let you guys check it out if you want, but it's pretty good on point so far, if you ask me, what a lot of us think. Pulling out the different issues by people defending Trump and um, I'll just close it with this. By Trump's own definition, he has actually added to the swamp rather than draining it. Trump's cabinet is loaded with an ensemble of elitist freaks that should have been relegated to a carnival sideshow. Yeah, you can't say much more than that, but he goes on in this article talking about the different issues behind Trump and the people that support him. And he says, I could go on. Obviously, the swamp will not be drained anytime soon, if ever, but cognitive dissonance on this issue reigns supreme. And there's more. So yeah, check that out. That's right up my thought process. It's in your links below. And underline here, America looks rather hypocritical, crying foul on unbalanced trade while we benefit from the greatest trade imbalance of all time, the world reserve currency. If you think that the dollar will not be a target in the trade war, then you are gravely mistaken. And we've talked about that the last couple of weeks. The reserve currency coming out of favor, people trying to find ways around it. In particular, we saw that the EU made a move to try to get oil from Iran despite the sanctions by using other currency. So that's where the real war lies, and the trade imbalance of using that currency for mandated points. So yeah, that's a really good article. Check it out. It's a good way to start your Saturday, I guess. Disgruntled and discontent. Hey, Walter Davis joined us. Good morning, sir. Glad you got that hay rake rolling. That was a pretty cool set of videos you did the last couple days. Well, I guess you did it yesterday, but whichever. Huge car pileup on Cajon Pass a couple days ago. Seems like those happen every other week, don't they, High Pocket? It's all those people trying to get to Vegas on time, right? Shooting Uncle Dan has joined us. Good morning. A fog caused the crashes up on the pass. Yeah, I'll bet. What did I see about Cajon Pass a while back? I don't remember. All right, have a good day, Uncle Dan. Don't work too hard. That's probably a good way to say it, Barry. The swamp is a huge ocean. It'd be nice if we could get the size of DC back to the original size of the swamp that was there. Have a good day, High Pocket. Enjoy your walk. You're working on I'm not sure what that is, Walter. A backup baker? What is that? Not sure what this is that you speak of. Backup baker. Is that spelled right? Did I, hmm. But does that require all the welding and everything else as well? Good stuff. All right, moving on. Like we were talking about, checking in on the volcano. Um, I guess it's settled down a little bit. They're just providing a lot of updates. Uh, it's destroyed more than 80 homes. If I can get this in here. So it's done quite a bit of, you got to figure how many homes are even going to be able to get access to with all the roads getting cut off. A lot of homes may be just cut off and inaccessible other than by air. Don't look at Anderson Cooper. But, oh, you're back up Baylor. Oh, got it. Yeah. I mean, it was very important for me. I got to have hay, so I hope people can have it baled for me when I go to pick it up. It's my extent of hay baler understanding. So the eruption now has claimed more than 80 homes have actually damaged. Again, how many will actually be unaccessible after this is over? I don't know if they're doing made that determination yet. It says the number swallowed by the lava has jumped to at least 87. Mandatory evacuation order was reissued Thursday night for a portion of the subdivision in the midst of additional lava explosions from the fissures. They're basically told them evacuate or get arrested. It says what's interesting, here's a statement: because of the havoc and damage the volcano is causing. I don't know that the havoc hasn't been that bad. Like, it's been a very slowly ongoing thing, but it's not like being chaotic. It doesn't seem like. I mean, the lava takes its time to get anywhere, so people get warning, and that's kind of a sensationalist statement, I guess. So additional members of the residents of this one subdivision were told to evacuate by Friday afternoon. Emergency responders have no plans to rescue anyone from evacuated areas after the deadline. Well, that makes sense. That's what they're there for. That's the only statement you should make. At your own risk. We're not going to. Emergency responders aren't going to respond to this area after a certain time. That's what evacuation orders should simply say. People putting their own lives at risk is no concern to the government. It shouldn't be. Once you've given them fair warning, especially. Kapaho is the new area being evacuated. Kapaho Beach and Vacation Land were ordered due to the risk of getting trapped by the lava. So they're not so worried about getting overrun by it, but again, getting cut off. It has been a full 4 weeks since this all started. The lava has covered an area of 5.5 square miles, 4 times as big as New York's Central Park. Fissure number 8 remains the most active. I guess they just numbered the fissures, and sending persistent fountains of lava as high as 260 feet into the air. Lobes of lava were advancing from the fissure 100 yards an hour, the USGS said. That's moving right along. Says this is the hottest lava we've seen during this eruption. The scientists with the USGS said lava can't get hotter. Lava cannot get hotter than where we are. Wow. That's a statement. I mean, you're getting the hottest of the hot. Let's see if this video will play on. And there's the fountaining they're talking about from that one fissure. So this isn't out of the main crater or anything. This is one of the fissures, cracks, basically, coming out and down, radiating away from it. That's pretty impressive. This is time lapse? No, this is real time. Oh, the rocks coming down from the other explosions and whatnot. So cool. Oh, you can see rock bombs. It's hard to maybe see on your screen. They're really faint. It showed just rocks coming out of the sky, basically. Yeah. It's one of those things. It'd be good to see it once, and after that, no need to go back. And then they're talking about the volcanic smog and the sulfur dioxide gas, which they were really concerned because people don't understand the danger. There was an article earlier in the week about people roasting marshmallows, and they were telling people not to roast marshmallows over the hot and lava areas because of some of the gases that may be getting into your food and whatnot. Like, okay. And here's another hazard that I don't think anybody thought about. In addition to volcanic particles that can cause eye, skin, and respiratory irritation, residents were warned to be on the lookout for sharp, thin strands of volcanic glass fibers, known as Pele's hair. The defense agency warned it could cause injury if it got in the resident's eye or was breathed in. So some of that stuff gets vaporized into the air. Maybe that's what they were worried about, people getting on their marshmallows. Strands of volcanic glass fibers. How impressive is that? So make sure you got all your PPE on if you're going to around any volcano, I guess. So still very interesting days going on in Hawaii. Everybody's probably learning stuff they didn't know before on the activity of volcanoes in particular. Very interesting stuff. So gonna move on over here to our neighbors next door in California. High Pocket just left. I don't know, Rooster's not in or somebody, but their loony governor, Jerry Brown, continues to amaze with his insanity. Get this over here. And their impending water restrictions that they're bringing in. Let's get you in here with the rest. And some of these numbers are it's South Africa style, like water concern, which we'll move into next because we've been covering that for quite a while. when South Africa had a one-town problem, they dealt with it with Cape Town. But it looks like California is trying to go for a whole California solution to solve LA's problems, which is never a good policy, I would say. So Jerry Brown has approved water restrictions. So Thursday, legislation was signed, new statewide standards to encourage water conservation, is the way this is written. Two bills will set water efficiency goals for water suppliers throughout the state. The governor said measures throughout the state. So it's universal. Everybody has the same solution, no matter that Northern California has plenty of water, as long as it wasn't all being stolen down to Southern California. Central California, the bread basket area, fruit basket, would be fine if our water wasn't being stolen. Where's Seller at? He's got good opinions on the water situation in California, I'm sure. He's probably out with his animals already, putting the cows in a new field or something. But this legislation establishes an indoor per person water use goal of 55 gallons per day starting in 2022. So that is exactly almost the number that they were using in South Africa in crisis mode. So basically he's saying California's going to be in crisis mode in 2022. That's the way I read that. That an amount that will gradually be dialed down to 50 gallons per day starting by 2030. Targets for outdoor water use will be set differently to take into account factors like the local precipitation in Northern California. State of Jefferson doesn't have the same problems. There's your target. State of Jefferson, there's your target. 2022, get out. Everything you can to get out of that loony bin before it all falls apart. Necessary. The red legislation will require both urban and agricultural water budgets and have plans in place for dealing with drought. You're trying to tell me LA doesn't already have their water suppliers, because they have a LA water district, I would imagine, doesn't have a water budget and plan for dealing with drought? I mean, that's like got to be 20 years too late then if they don't have it already. San Diego, most of San Bernardino County, they don't have Orange County. If they don't have plans already, it's too late, isn't it? Why? I mean, why? What good is a state mandate when it's 20 years behind the power curve? Oh, goodness. Insanity rules, especially in California. So being 20 years behind the power curve, and it's not going to help people if they're not already on board. But it's Assembly Bill 1668 and Senate Bill 606 are designed to overhaul California's approach to managing water. Correction, California's approach to stealing water from everywhere else that needs it. We need everybody to use water efficiently year-round, whether there's a drought or not. This is Assemblywoman Laura Friedman from Glendale. She's the author of 1668. We know that we're going to be a drought in the future. I thought they were still in a drought in California. It says we know that climate change and changing hydrology and just the natural landscape that we have in California leads to us to drought cycles. Plus, you have far too many people in one tiny little place, and you can't get them water efficiently. Better develop some desalination plans, which I've been hearing stories about. I've even heard stories about desalination pipes running up over the Sierra into Reno. I've heard stories of that being in the works, but I don't know what California's planning for LA. again, look at the South African Cape Town example. Like they had been working on their plans, and just happened their plans to finish their desalination plants butted up against a severe drought. So they fortunately got those online this year. But if LA doesn't have already desalination plants in the works by now, 2022 is going to come up really fast. So it says different water agencies will decide how they can meet their targets and become more efficient, whether by fixing leaks in a distribution system or giving customers incentive to save water. She says, we've never told agencies what we expect from them in terms of their efficiency and water use. This is the first time we have a framework to do that. So it's not legislation. They wrote it as legislation, but it's a framework plan, is the way I read this now. It's, I mean, I don't know why you put it in legislation when the people that should make it, they're telling people they have to go out and do planning and set out goals and stuff, do people's jobs for them. Very, very top down, kind of like communist central planning. I mean, how that works out. Because if it's not a legislative punishable mandate, then it's not. Why is it in a Senate bill if it doesn't have a effective law? Ridiculous. Doesn't do any good. If you're going to talk about it and make a plan, do that separately. Legislatures get in areas they don't belong in. Local water conservation planning, which again should have been going on for decades. So they're saying here the California's most severe drought was from 2012 to 2016. So maybe they came out of it as well. I mean, we came out of it at the end of last winter. So maybe that was their breaking point too, with all that rain and everything. It says Brown declared the emergency over in April of 2017 after one of the wettest record winters. Okay, so it affected them about the same. Refilled reservoirs across the state. So in 2015, Brown announced mandatory conservation measures aimed at achieving a statewide 25% reduction in water use. So those were mandatory. I don't know what kind of, well, I guess if they're in a state of emergency, he had some effect of punitive measures he could do with mandatory conservation measures. I don't know how that works. Most governors don't have executive authority that are punitive and can actually, except for other government agencies, obviously. State regulators, this is 2015, set percentage targets for urban water districts. Californians responded during the drought by dramatically cutting water use, which only makes sense. If you don't need it, don't use it. Get rid of those lawns. They're a archetype that standard of living that is unrealistic, and really was a bad example for us. We set ourselves up for failure when we try to follow the example of the elite and live like them. Very bad conservation wise, but also just using your own resources effectively, money wise. So again, the legislator, oh wait, to get a new person in here. Tracy Quinn, Director of California Water Conservation and Efficiency for the Natural Resources Defense Council. That's a lot of title right there. Director of California Water Conservation and Efficiency for the Natural Resources Defense Council. They supported the legislation and said it builds on lessons learned during the drought. Says it's a step in the right directions, yada yada. It really creates a more fair and equitable framework. There's the keywords. If it's fair and equitable, you know it's going to be a disaster. It's a trap. Anybody that says fair and equitable, Jefferson, you're going to get screwed. Get out now. Again, 2022 is your target, Jefferson. Do you get it done? Moving on down, some of the details of the bill. More of the state's agricultural water suppliers, including those that are publicly or privately owned and irrigate at least 10,000 acres, will be required to measure how much water is delivered to farms, adopting a pricing structure for water customers based at least in part on quantity delivered, and take other steps to encourage efficiency. Don't most large farms have water rights? I don't know. I don't know if it's like Nevada, but usually if you have a surface water right, that's measured out for you annually anyway, an acre feet. Be, I mean, you own that right. There is no pricing structure. It's already baked in. That's interesting. I wonder what they're trying to scam there. Water suppliers in farming areas will be required to submit agricultural water management plans that include information on which efficient water management practices have been implemented, what other improvements are planned, an estimate of efficiency improvements since the last report, an estimate on what steps to improve are being planned for the next 5 to 10 years. So making everybody all make all these long-term big goal planning things go on. Very end of the article, there's an eco tip. Don't water your lawn when it's raining. Yeah, there's a shocker, huh? So yeah, California sounds like they're a little bit behind the power curve, trying to make central government planning trendy again with fair and equitable distribution of water. Hey, good morning, Rooster. How you doing? We were just talking about you. Well, you have a good morning anyway. But yeah, the loony governor over there and the loony legislature. I mean, really, that came out of the legislature. He just signed it. I'm sure he approved of it. But the big key thing there is it's basically the water goals for California for 2022 are the same as the water goals for this year for Cape Town, South Africa. Take that for what you will. I guess it's not a mandate in California, but basically saying it looks like they're saying we're going to be in a crisis, and they want to. And California wants to accept every migrant, every immigrant, every refugee known to man when they can't support them. It's like you've got water problems. You don't need to be bringing in every single person from all around the country or the world for that matter. Things are going to get pricey. So matching that up with the South African update, if I can get this, get over here. All right. This is out of the, what is this, enac.com, South African or an African channel, focusing on their water crisis for a bit. As they say, it's far from over. We know that they missed their 0 day. They didn't go into all those extreme restrictions that they were planning for back in January. They were able to mitigate that. So maybe California will avoid disaster, but Cape Town did have a bit of support from Mother Nature, and the weather helped them out a little bit on that. But the University of the Free State states that South Africa's water crisis is far from over. Professor Turton is urging the government to invest in wastewater recovery technology Cape Town has recorded a loss of R2 billion in water sales. I guess that's renminbi $2 billion in water sales due to the ongoing drought. This is a really short article. There's not much you can get out of this. This Professor Turton says what's happened now with day zero is that effective now. The Western Cape has been brought to its knees. He said authorities are still looking how to avoid cost rather than investing in water infrastructure. There was some good points on that in some of these stories out of South Africa. It's like you're still paying for your water service, but you don't get the water. Kind of a bad deal. Professor goes on to say the reality is we are fundamentally water constrained, and we've got to grow our economy aggressively. We have to incentivize investment of capital and technology into the water in order to become the foundation of a rapidly growing economy that is capable of employing large quantities of people very quickly. That's a roundabout statement that makes no sense. Maybe it's a language barrier thing there that this got translated in or something. That statement makes no sense. We'll read this again just to make sure. Maybe I'm not having enough coffee. Maybe that's the problem. The reality is that we are fundamentally water constrained, and we've got to grow our economy aggressively. We have to incentivize investment of capital and technology into the water in order to become the foundation of rapidly growing economy that is capable of employing large quantities of people very quickly. Whew, that statement might require somebody to reevaluate their priorities. I understand what they're really dealing with. They need to readjust their priorities. It's like until you develop and deal with your water constraints, you're not going to be able to grow your economy aggressively or quickly. You can't put the cart before the horse. Not sure what they're trying to get at there. Looks like there's some good news, though. Western Cape dam levels are rising, so they're getting stuff in their reservoirs, it looks like. But that's an interesting take. Obviously, I think that's a warning to the public because people see that they're kind of that day zero never happened. People kind of relax a little bit, but they're not out of the woods yet. Haven't seen any stories about their desalination plants. And one of them was supposed to come online. Was it May 11th? Should have been online last month, I believe. And the others are coming up here in the summer, which is the winter for them. So they're in the winter, so they're kind of in their wet season, I guess, for the most part. And we'll see what happens when it comes into their summer, how they manage. Oh, were they selling water to China out of the Central Valley of California? I have never heard that. I've never heard that. That's interesting, Walter. Right. Well, the fair distribution of food, right? That's grown by that fair distribution of water. Yeah, Rooster, that might be one of your problems. You accept all lepers. You don't discriminate in California. Yeah, right, Walter, unless you're a white male leper, as long as you're not heterosexual. If you're a heterosexual white male leper, they won't take you, Walter, just so you know. So that's some interesting stories. There's some additional zero hedge articles I had down below that we can get into. It's funny how the stock market kind of went this week. It was zigzagging all over the place between the bond market scaring everybody. Well, the bond market kind of getting the reaction. Trade wars threatened, and then all of a sudden the economy is seen as this brilliant, fine running machine with the jobs market, and it was back up yesterday. So it's a seesaw battle that goes sideways. I think those bonds is still the key indicator with your inflation not being held in check, which the market doesn't want inflation held in check. As long as those bonds are under 3, they'll probably get a little more comfortable. But if it runs back up to 3.1, nothing's gonna go anywhere. And the Fed said they wanted inflation to run, so they're going to do everything they can to hold those bonds low, and they have to hold them low. They can't let it get up there in the 3.1 higher range. Everybody's going to throw their money at the government again. That was weird. The other day they talked about the Italian economy's problems, and everybody threw their money at the U.S. government. It's like, what? That doesn't even make sense. Somehow that does not make sense. So Don Pedro Lake is full, Rooster? Yeah, your governor was saying they lifted the drought order last year in California, so it said most of the reservoirs are full after all the rain we had last year, so that's good for you, right? The Delta submelt has saved man, so open up the dam gates, let it flow right into the bay. That's what's going on? They're dropping water just right into the bay, not letting it go to irrigation right now. Sparks, what's going? Good morning, by the way. Haven't seen you in a minute. You've been checked out on us this week. We've been talking bad about California all week, but don't worry, we've been supporting the state of Jefferson, so it's all good. Your sleep plan is messed up, Jay Sparks? Yeah, right. Castaway Planet, good morning. All right. Yeah, there should be lots of water coming out of Yosemite. We still got snow on the mountains. Those early May storms brought snow. So the snowpack has lingered around quite a bit this year, so that's shouldn't be a problem. I don't think this year should be a problem as far as water goes. It was a decent year. It wasn't no record year like last year, but maintain, I guess, would be the way to say it. Hey, good morning, Castaway Planet. How you doing? Thanks for joining us. Thanks for checking in. So between the water issues in California and South Africa aside, I did have links below to a couple other zero hedge hypothesis articles or whatever you want to call it. But I saw this one caught my eye because I always have my your apocalypse sign of the times type of article. Not that the volcano's not enough of that, but pull this over. Oh, that's not the right one. Oh, yeah, it was. Goodness. This mouse doesn't work. So this is a zero hedge. It says the quote in the headline was pretty good. It said, I arrived in Brazil in the middle of the zombie apocalypse. Doesn't get much better than that. So this is written by a guy, the editor-in-chief of America's Quarterly, who just returned from a week in Brazil. And we talked about last week, they've been having these trucker walkouts, trucker strike. So nobody's getting anything because the truckers are all on strike. So this is off of Twitter. In 15 years of following Brazil, I've never seen as pessimistic I have never been as pessimistic as I am following a week in Sao Paulo. Open clamor for military intervention. Politicians froze. Crazy ideas circulating in society at large. Bolsonaro rising. I'm not sure what Bolsonaro is. Maybe that's one of the gangs or something. There was talk of an article we saw a couple of weeks ago of Brazil about they wanted military control to return to Brazil. Didn't Brazil just have the Olympics? They should be riding large, right? And I think that's always the takeaway after the Olympics. The countries always suffer from actually hosting the Olympics, especially when you're barely a second world country and struggling to get by as it is. You have to clean out the slums to host the Olympics. So here, starting his articles, he says, I arrived here on Sunday in the middle of the zombie apocalypse, or so it seemed. A nationwide trucker strike was in its 77th day, and 99% of Sao Paulo's service stations had run out of gasoline. So Sao Paulo, that's not including all the other large cities. You can imagine they're all having the same impact. There's quite a few people in Brazil. It's not a small country either. The roads of South America's biggest city. So there's another one, in South America. Were deserted of cars and people, and the skies were a murky gray. Wait, how can the skies be gray if all the cars are not running? There's no gasoline to burn. There's no smog, right? How does that happen? The normally hellish drive from the airport, which often lasts 2 hours or more, took a disconcerting 23 minutes. It's like, the zombie apocalypse has arrived. You're just zipping through town. How does he get gas and everybody else is out? I guess if you pay enough money, you can get anything, right? So he's going to say a lot of things in Spanish here, these Spanish titles and stuff that I will butcher in some ways, but we'll try to struggle through it. He says he was up on the public square, Avenida Paulista, the city's, or the closest thing to a public square. Things seemed normal at first. Huge crowds milled about, vendors were grilling beef, etc. Yada yada. They says, then I saw a huge banner spanning the entire avenue carried by a group of protesters. Support for the truck drivers, military intervention, armed forces urgent. So yeah, they're asking for a military coup to rectify the problems and the grievances of these truckers. So the truckers are striking for a military takeover of their government. How does that make sense? Oh, if you haven't been to Brazil, don't go now. And he says that was the start of the week where he never saw or heard things he believed would be in Brazil while he was in Brazil. See how long this article is. Okay. Well, no problem. But he describes Brazil mid-2018 as frightened, leaderless, and shockingly pessimistic. He's a country of 4 years of scandal, violence, and economic destruction have obliterated faith in the president, but also the political class and also in democracy itself, he says. That's why you can't rely on democracies. It is a country where there will be elections in October, and most voters profess little faith in any of the candidates. Many Brazilians, perhaps 40% of them, according to a new poll, believes that the military should somehow act to restore order. Well, we know how that works. That never comes out well. Troubling times in Brazil. Vote of no confidence essentially going on. It's a red alert for anybody else foreign investors and ordinary Brazilians alike with the old-fashioned belief that healthy civilian institutions are the key to long-term prosperity, or who still hold out hope that Brazil's economy and political outlook might finally stabilize this year. Bolsonaro, when we talk about the Bolsonaros, that's one of the, he's a retired army captain who's running for president. He's most identified at the armed forces and is running first. So Bolsonaro is a candidate. So going into some history, he says the last Brazilian dictatorship, which ran from 1964 to 85, left a legacy of debt, hyperinflation, falling wages, and human rights abuses. Yet, unlike Chile and Argentina, Brazilian soldiers were never judged for their crimes and never fell into abject disgrace. So with Brazil at the forefront of political global backlash against elites and institutions, the military is increasingly perceived as the only credible vehicle for change. Scary. So this trucker strike started on May 21st after the government sanctioned hike in diesel prices. So the government's trying to suck up more money. That quickly grew into something bigger. So striking truckers shared videos and other messages calling for the end of Temer's government. That's the president. And they're calling on the national security forces all during the strike to take over and oust the president. I thought Venezuela was the country that was falling apart. How did Brazil get wrapped into this? He says, I spoke to many protesters at Avenida Paulista and others over the course of the week. Many drew a direct link between the diesel price hike and corruption at Petrobras. Petrobras is a big oil company, the state-owned oil company. And at the heart of Brazil's car wash corruption scandal. So there's a big scandal wrapping in the state-owned oil and the government, etc. Virtually everyone thought that anything bad for Temer, the first Brazilian president ever to be charged with a crime while in office, and it has an approval rating of 5%, must be good for the country. Still others insisted democracy has proven an ineffective tool to fight street crime, corruption, and general disorder. He says he found himself arguing about this with a salesman in his 60s who had lived through the last military regime. Quote, I didn't like the dictatorship, he replied, but right now, come on. I can't even say it. They speak Portuguese in Brazil, right? He says, and he quotes, don't we have too much democracy? Polite society, especially in the big cities, continues to insist such voices are a minority. But I also spent part of the week among politicians. So a general approached a well-known politician to urge him to run for president and save the country. Quote, I don't think a majority of Brazilians want a coup, a prominent political analyst told me. If it happened, the people would probably support it. Oh, they're just on the brink there. Just on the brink. What's going on in the side chat? Sorry, fellas. What we got going on? Who's Paul Begley? Walter Davis speculates, wouldn't it be cool if we got low temperatures from the volcanic ash and start growing glaciers out west? Walter, what makes you think the glaciers are going to be out west? They're probably going to start up there in the Great Lakes and come right at you. What are you talking about? Nicaragua, Rooster. There is a civil war going on in Nicaragua. There's a lot of the refugee situations caused by Nicaragua and Honduras as well, I believe. We have a small Nicaraguan community here. Um, yeah, in Carson City area, and they've talked about it over last couple of years. They're having lots of issues. Right, Walter. I didn't know the Civil War in Nicaragua ended. It's in different phases of control. Right. Hey, good morning, Southern Arkansas Homestead. Nina, how you doing? Hope you're having a good day. You taking a break after the morning chores? It's about almost lunchtime there for you. There's live streams of Nicaragua on News 2 Share channel. Is that right? Right. The gas subsidies the government took away. Well, it looks like they attacked diesel prices last. That's why the truckers struck. It had the strike, Rooster, etc. But Brazil's falling apart fairly quickly, it looks like, comparatively speaking. Venezuela's taken 10 years to get where they're at. Yeah, Castaway Planet, they were eating all kinds of things. We've talked about that for a couple months now. Yeah, zoo animals, among other things. Is it the kookaburra? Not the kookaburra. Goodness, I never can get that big rat-looking thing that's down there right. But yeah, we were talking about them farm. They farm those to begin with, and eating rats is kind of the standard that's going around in Venezuela right now. In that article we were reading, the zoo animals were pretty much done in some of the Venezuela areas. Oh, I got you, Rooster. Yeah, I try not to. I try to avoid false prophets, so I'll take your word for it. End of the world falls. So he's got a new date for the end of the world every other week or something. One of those guys. Yeah. Also in your description box, all those links that we've talked about, but there's also one. I'll let you read it yourself. It's 7 ways to stay alive in a post-collapse society. It's just good tips. I think it's something we've all thought about at one point or another. Um, it's nothing. If you've been in the prepping YouTube area or any period of time, it's nothing new, but it's just a good read. It's by Jeremiah Johnson off of YouReadyNutrition.com and shared over there. So go check that out if you got time. Again, that's in your description box below. What else is going on a Saturday? Has anybody heard anything about any Tommy Robinson protests today in the UK? I know there was one scheduled for next week, supposed to be the big one. I believe they said the 6th or 7th. Was there? Well, maybe it was the 8th. But that silencing of the media, they lifted their gag order on the case of his. So you could talk about him getting arrested. I don't think you still can't talk about Muslims raping little kids. I don't think, but they're getting some leeway there at least. Right, Walter. When we were back when we were kids in the Soldier of Fortune magazine, there was a civil war in Nicaragua. Right, it's back when the Sandinistas and everybody was going on. So it looks like they did have a demonstration yesterday again in the UK on the Tommy Robinson issue. I didn't see any YouTube videos on it. And I'm following a couple of those people that are directly there. Huh. Thanks for nothing, I guess. Everybody seems to surge on YouTube on Fridays, so maybe it just got buried in everything else. And if it was a live stream, it could have been over and done with before you even see it. But here's out of the UK Express, the latest protest. So this is in Leeds, not in London. I'm not even sure how far Leeds is from London, so my UK geography is a little sketchy, except I know where Scotland's in the north. That's about it. Yeah, Rooster, the YouTube blackout. They've still been lots of feeds out of this UK for these protests. It hasn't been too bad. Of course, they could have just screened out from popping up on my subscription long enough not to notice it, and then it pops back up later. But that would have been our morning time here yesterday, so easily could have missed it though. But the big one's planned for next week in London, I believe, at the Whitehall again. Yeah, Castaway. There's been demonstrations on Tommy Robinson and really worldwide. They had them in Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand. I think anybody that's part of the Commonwealth, there's been protests, and they had some protests in Germany of different support groups. I don't know that there's been one in the U.S., but yeah, I think in the New Zealand they had it like right outside the embassy or the whatever they call it. I don't understand how a member of the Commonwealth has an embassy with Great Britain. I thought they would just have a government building. But it says hundreds assembled out in Leeds yesterday to protest the arrest of Tommy Robinson from a couple weeks ago. Around 500 demonstrators, which if they say 500, I'd estimate closer to 800. At the police office. So this would be exactly where he got arrested, though. He was outside of the Leeds court when it happened. That's where he got arrested from. So again, taking the protests to the people you're protesting, I think is a very good strategy. Americans, especially in the police brutality cases, people are not protesting the right way. You should be out in front of the police station of the place where this happened, not out in the streets of your normal community protesting. Like, it doesn't do anything. Get out there and put the protest in front of who you're protesting, especially if it's the police or the government. So they just kind of summarize the protest, going after the police, calling them cowards and a disgrace, etc. And if you follow the case, he got arrested for disturbing the peace, I believe. But when he got into court, they charged him with a different and convicted him on a different charge. And that, when they convicted him on an additional charge, that's what acted. And when he was on suspended sentence, they used that conviction to lift that suspension. Winston Smith's Taxi, yeah, that's one of the guys I've seen. Walter, yeah. At first, I was like, yeah, he's a pretty good perspective too, because he's got all his previous stuff, so he's got a lot of background on YouTube, and he's not a big political and activist guy, but he's been out there documenting. It's been pretty good perspective. He's not all in this, just all aboard the team type of guy. He's fairly level-headed. Yes, Rooster, they're all still subjects. That is the worst thing about it, but every little bit can help. Yeah, that's the point, Walter. Don't burn your neighbors down. That doesn't help your message or your cause at all. Yeah, the reporting restriction was lifted on Tuesday for this case. Yeah, I was saying when this first happened, if Britain's going to do anything about this, Britain being the British people, they need to have Catalonian style sized protest, and so it needs to be every town possible, large influxes, filling town squares, etc., to have any effect of potential people taking you seriously, I guess would be the way to say it, because Madrid had to come in and with their own police to try to shut down some of those Catalonian protests, and that just shows them for the thugs they are when they're forced to come in with tear gas and everything else when you're doing nothing more than chanting and waving flags. This is an unauthorized assembly. As soon as they say that, you've kind of won. So that's the update there. I didn't see anything scheduled for today. I don't see anything on the active live stream on my end, but of course I could be missing something. The Opinionated European just recently changed her name of her channels and her Twitter and everything to incorporate. It's a real name now, and I just saw it. She changed her channel name, so it's still on the same channel, just she changed the name so that shows up. So if you see it in your stream, I'm trying to pull up her name, but she's had a fairly good perspective. She's a Polish by heritage, going to school in Great Britain. She's had some pretty good videos about communism and stuff, and she kind of just got hitched onto this Tommy Robinson thing, and her channel blew up. Doesn't look like Winston Smith has said anything about today. He's got a video about David Icke. Yeah, so yeah, that Winston's Taxi is an interesting channel. He's just a guy out driving his taxi in Great Britain, commenting on stuff from the like a lot of us do. He just happens to be in a taxi. Castaway. What would happen if Theresa May pardoned Tommy? Does Theresa May have that power as a prime minister? Is that a prime minister power they have there? They actually have pardon powers? I didn't think they had that quite level of executive authority. Interesting. I would say hell would freeze over, but I've been known to be wrong. There was a joke yesterday, was it the other day, when the Stanley Cup game was on in Vegas. They were having issues with the ice because it was so hot in Vegas, and the meme was that here's proof that hell can't freeze over because the ice was melting in Vegas. Yeah, just a protest in Leeds yesterday. Nothing today so far, at least. looks like, yeah, the Yorkshire News estimates the crowd at 400, so they're even downplaying it even more over there in that news source. So everybody tries to downplay those numbers as much as possible, it looks like, from the state media. Another article, man arrested as 350 protesters gather. Yeah, that number keeps going down and down depending on which article you look at. What did you redact there, Rooster? I missed it. Dang it. Yeah, so we'll see how interesting the weekend is, how much trouble we can get into here. We'll see you around on the YouTube, I guess, unless anybody's got anything else they want to throw out there this morning. Nobody ever updates their pages with very much on a Saturday morning. Everybody sleeps in, I think. So I guess the big thing, Rooster, you people in California, pay attention what's going on over in South Africa. It's going to be you in a couple years, the way things are going. No doubt. So we'll stay alert, stay alive. Y'all have a good weekend. We'll see you around. Stay in contact. Live free.